Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel. Today we're going to look at what some of the best decks in the format right now are for the early Stellar Crown meta. Now these decks are from like online tournaments and stuff, but it gives us a good view and look as to what really are the decks that are winning the most and are the best decks in the format right now. Now I try to include decks that are including new Stellar Crown cards. I didn't really want to just choose like Regidrago and Snorlax, which aren't really playing any new cards, but they're still putting up good results. All these new decks, or at the very least, all these decks are playing new cards. So they do have different strategies in them now, and they play potentially a little bit different than they did in the past format, and all that stuff. So I did want to include some of those in today's video. If you're somebody who's looking to find the play for Louisville later next month, hopefully this video helps you out. If you're trying to get your footing as to what you're comfortable with playing right now, maybe this video might help you find a deck to play in the current format right now. And if y'all are new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We're on the road to 17,000 subs. If you go on to enjoy the video, leave a like and all that good stuff. And without further ado, let's take a look at what the best decks are right now. All right, starting things off, we have a Dragapult EX deck here, and Tragos has definitely been doing pretty decent in the online tournaments. In fact, in the most recent late-night tournament, there were two of these in the top four. Even Isaiah Bradner has been heavily pushing this Dragapult Dusknoir deck. So this deck definitely feels like it's going to be a thing within our format. I did want to touch on it real quickly, as it might be the best way to play Tragos. By the way, none of these decks are in any order, by the way, in terms of like ranking. They're just six of the best decks in the format. But anyways, yes, Dragapult Dusknoir might be the best way to play it. Dragapult does have a lot of potential. There is a lot of power behind it, right? It does have all the support behind it with the Area Zero, the Rotom, the Bufflon, the Noctowl. There's a lot of consistency behind it. The best way to play it, though, might just be with the 4 double turbo engine. Dragapult doesn't need anything else really to do its first attack, Unified Beatdown. With the double turbo, you can hit pretty hard. You also have the Dusknoir in the deck if you want to do more damage, take extra prizes. You have the Blood Moon in the deck, too, which also is really good with Bufflon, not just being really good with Tragos, but Blood Moon actually ends up being really good with Bufflon too. So Bufflon ends up being pretty useful with those cards. And then, of course, you do have the Pidgeot in the deck. Pidgeot does provide a lot of search power for the deck. I mean, you already have the Noctowl in the deck, but Noctowl can only be used like once you evolve it, so you can't really like scoop up that doesn't exist. So the best alternative option is to Pidgeot. You have Pidgeot, get any card out of your deck. It's really easy to chain combo pieces together when you have the Pidgeot and the Noctowl. The deck also plays Briar in the deck. So Briar also ends up being a very important, crucial card in the deck. Especially when you have the Dusknoirs in the deck, you can take all these prizes and you can force your opponent down with Briar, and then you can Briar for game usually. So this deck can actually win sometimes fairly quickly, depending on how it all goes. But yeah, Tragos with Dusknoir looks like it might be the best way to play Tragos. And if you're looking for a Tragos list to play, definitely give this deck a try. All right, now if you're somebody who's been enjoying Charizard, Charizard might be one of the best decks in the format right now, and I had to talk about it. Now, really just only gains the one new card from Stellar Crown, and that is, of course, the Briar. But the Briar makes such a big difference in Charizard because you can go Dusknoir, and you can force your opponent into Briar range, and you can play the Briar. And that's basically all Charizard needs to do now to be a lot better. I mean, before the Briar, Charizard was good, but now that we have Briar in the deck just becomes immediately better. And Briar Charizard seems very, very scary. If somebody can figure out the perfect 60 for the deck, I think Briar Charizard is destined to be the best deck in the format. Briar with Dusknoir is a very deadly combo because you can use Dusknoir, of course, to manipulate the prize trade. If your opponent is trying to stay on odd prizing to avoid getting Briared, you can literally just go Dusknoir, force your opponent to 2 prizes, play the Briar, knock out Charizard, take 3 prizes, and win the game on the spot. So there's a lot of really insane plays you can make with Briar Dusknoir, and Charizard is probably the best abuser of the Briar Dusknoir engine just because it's Charizard, it's super bulky, super tanky, it already does a billion damage at the point of you get to use Briar already, and you have Pidgeot in the deck already to help search out these combo pieces. So yeah, Charizard Briar looks really good right now. Don't sleep on it. It potentially could be one of the best decks, if not the best deck in the format. And again, if you're somebody who's looking to maybe play Charizard or Louisville, you want to get that early testing in, I would recommend trying out this Briar Charizard deck and seeing how good it is and really getting your footing with it going into Louisville, because I think Charizard is destined to be one of the top decks right now, all thanks to Briar and Dusknoir. All right, we got to talk about Maron being one of the top decks in the format now because it definitely has been picking up a lot more play and has been winning a bunch of tournaments. That's mainly because the deck has now gained Area Zero under depth. Now, that might not seem like a big deal. It's like gaining one card, much like Charizard. It's just one card. But that one new card ends up changing how the deck functions and how the deck is beaten. And Area Zero is an insane upgrade of the deck because now your Raikous are even stronger. Raikou is a very good attacker that requires only 2 energy, so it really gets to save you on energy requirements with your generators, and it also can do massive damage, even more damage than Miraidon usually can do. Now, of course, you do have to play the Terrestrial Mewtwo EX in the deck in order to activate Area 0, but it's a pretty straightforward thing. You just go Tandem Unit for Mewtwo, play down the Area 0 Stadium card, and then you also get to fill your bench up even more. So now you can bench more Pokemon, so you can play down Mew, Fez, Squawkabilly, Greninja, Luminion. All your draw support engine gets to be in play at once, making your deck really difficult to slow down. Like, once you kind of start ramping up, Miraidon, it can be very hard to stop. You already have Iron Hands in the deck, which can be a very powerful Pokemon too. Then, of course, like I said, thanks to Area 0, Raikou ends up being a very strong card. If your opponent also is trying to take advantage of Area 0, you can punish them really badly by knocking stuff out in one hit with Raikou. Even, like, against a big basic deck, like sometimes Raging Bolt, sometimes you can take a turn 1 donk with that Raikou V when you fill your bench up. Like, Raikou V is just a ridiculously strong attacker now with Area 0, and also just being able to bench all these support Pokemon just makes your deck really difficult to slow down. Like, Iono becomes less good when you have, like, 2 Mews, a Greninja, and a Fezandipity in play on top of, like, Fleet-Footed. Yeah, Miraidon is looking very scary. I would say the one thing with playing Miraidon right now, though, is if there's going to be a lot of Charizard, well, that's just naturally going to be a bad matchup, so you have to be very mindful of Charizard, because Charizard is probably your worst matchup, but overall, I think Miraidon is in a pretty solid spot right now, and Area 0 makes the deck even more deadlier, because like I said, Raikou is just a very threatening attacker now. All right, now, debatably, the best deck in this format currently, the early Stellar Crown meta, might just be Dragapult X. Dragapult X, in my opinion, got the biggest buff from Stellar Crown out of almost every deck. That's because it gained the most amount of playable new cards, but these playable new cards make Dragapult even scarier. And potentially, you know, some people are arguing it's stronger than just playing Regidrago right now, mainly because you gained Sparkling Crystal, you gained Briar, and you even have Crispin now in the deck. The main part of what Dragapult has is obviously that Sparkling Crystal, because all of a sudden, turn 2 Dragapult's Phantom Dive is actually super easy to pull off thanks to Sparkling Crystal. Your Arvins becoming Sparkling Crystals is really, really strong, and Dragapult with Sparkling Crystal is a very, very deadly duo. Dragapult EX has always been underwhelming compared to Regidrago, because Regidrago is a deck that can, a lot of the time, attack even faster than Dragapult can, which is kind of funny. It's a better Dragapult deck than Dragapult itself, but now that Dragapult has Sparkling Crystal, it's kind of been flipped where now, okay, now Dragapult can attack even faster now. Dragapult's also bulkier than Regidrago, and it's not as kind of fragile in that regards. Drago still has advantages, right? You have Ogerpon, which can be really good into Charizard, but now there's Briar in the format, which hurts that. So Dragapult might just be a better Regidrago deck at this point, because Regidrago is already the better Dragapult deck, but now Dragapult might just be the best way to play Dragapult. And like I said, I think this deck has had the most amount of success recently in the online tournaments, and I think this is the one deck that has been getting the most amount of play in Japan, too. Like, this one has been winning the most in Japan. So I do think Dragapult is on the rise right now to be one of, if not the best deck in our current format. Now, that's maybe going to change, you know, by the time we get to Louisville Regionals, but I think if you're looking to play a deck that is just well-rounded, very solid, and very difficult to beat if it sets up, I think Dragapult is a really good play. Dragapult boasts a good matchup, in my opinion, into Charizard, so that's like the one thing holding Charizard back is Charizard struggles into Dragapult. Dragapult is really popular, and on top of that, Dragapult, I think, can hold its own against other big basic decks, mainly because you have the ability to set up a lot of damage over multiple turns and have, like, big 4-prize swing turns, like against Miraidon and Tropicos, for example. You can just put a bunch of damage on the board with Phantom Dive, and then you can just set up multiple 4-prize KOs. The deck has a lot of counterplay, a lot of different, like, strategies you can do with Dusknoir. Like, the deck is just really, really strong if it sets up, and thanks to Sparkling Crystal and Crispin, it's really easy to attack with Dragapult almost every single turn if you need to keep constantly charging your Dragapult up really fast. And yeah, definitely keep out on Dragapult right now. It's a very, very scary deck in our current format. Okay, next up, I want to talk about Palkia V-Star. I think Palkia V-Star has a ton of potential right now. It's been doing decent in the online tournaments and stuff, and even in Japan, it's been doing good. But I do want to mention Palkia, because I think Palkia does truly have a lot of potential in our format. It's basically a stronger version of Terrapagos, because it can do a buttload of damage with Subspace Well. Palkia is also really difficult to play around, because Palkia threatens your board where you can't bench a lot of Pokemon, or else Palkia is going to be doing so much damage. And if you can't bench Pokemon, your deck isn't able to really function at 100%. Now, Palkia does also have the ability to abuse Prime Catcher Cologne thanks to Noctowl. Noctowl is ridiculous. It makes it super easy to get turn 2 Cologne plays off with Radiant Greninja. And yeah, Palkia just seems like it's in a very good spot. People just maybe don't play it as much, or they haven't cracked the code on it. But I really do think Palkia is a truly strong deck right now. And it's definitely a deck that, in my opinion, is worth testing for going into Louisville. Like, if you're somebody who likes Palkia, honestly, committing the time to playing and practicing Palkia right now and cracking the 60 probably is a good idea, because I think Palkia is in a very solid spot if somebody can make up the best 60. There's also Palkia Dusknoir from like the past format that has also been seeing a bit of success, but the Palkia Area Zero deck I think also seems really good. It just has a lot of power behind it. You have the Noctowl, like I said, you have the Greninja Noctowl Cologne combo. Like, against Charizard and Dragapult, you can just go like turn 2 Prime Catcher Cologne or something, and Palkia can do so much damage now. It's a very massive threat. And I wanted to highlight Palkia here in today's video. And I think this deck is really good. I think somebody just needs to figure out the best way to play it. The one thing holding Palkia back maybe is just that bad Maridon matchup, but I think, you know, maybe if you were to play like a Blood Moon or Saloon or something, maybe the Maridon matchup becomes a little bit stronger. But yeah, that's like the worst thing about playing Palkia right now is Maridon's really good, really popular. That's your worst matchup. But if you can figure out a good Palkia list, I think Palkia is destined to be a pretty good deck in our format. So I did want to highlight it here. All right, and lastly, we have Raging Bolt. Now, Raging Bolt, I think, seems to be the most powerful turbo deck right now. Now, Raging Bolt's biggest kind of trait is it has a lot of good matchups against a lot of the big decks right now. It's really good into Dragapult, good into Maridon, good into Tragos, good into Regidrago. All these decks are fairly popular right now, and Raging Bolt just kind of bodies all of them, and that's kind of a big deal if you're somebody who likes to play Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt did gain one new card. That is, of course, Briar. Briar is really good because you can offset the prize trade even more now, which is really strong. You don't have to use it with Ogerpon, which is like the only issue with Briar, but I do think Briar does add a lot more power to the deck in general. It can make it even harder to play against Raging Bolt now. Raging Bolt also just being so beefy makes it really difficult to stop sometimes. Like, Maridon's also, you know, a very strong turbo deck right now with, you know, Area Zero. It's even more broken. But I would argue Maridon's a lot more, you know, bricky and less playing the game than Raging Bolt is. Like, Maridon's more of a lottery deck, you know, those electric generators. Sometimes you get those Maridon hands where you get like 4 energy in your hand and nothing else, and you can't really do anything with your hand. You're just sitting there passing. Where Raging Bolt, I would argue, out of like 10 games compared to Maridon, is probably going to be playing the game more often than not than Maridon is. Raging Bolt does have those good matchups. Like I said, Dragapult being really popular right now is a really big deal for Raging Bolt. A lot of the Dragapults I've seen are also playing Radiant Alakazam instead of Radiant Charizard, which is a big deal for Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt just seems like the strongest turbo deck right now and has a lot of good matchups. And again, that addition of Briar might make the deck even stronger. And I did want to mention Raging Bolt on this list. But there you go. Those are all some of the best decks right now in the format using new cards. Like I said, there's other decks out there that are really good right now, like Snorlax, Regidrago, Lugia, Roaring Moon are all doing pretty good, but they're not really playing any new cards. Like, a lot of the time, those lists are just basically the same thing as the past format we just played in. So it's not really worth talking about them, in my opinion. I wanted to look at the best decks right now using new cards in this early meta, but I do think these are some of the best decks right now in general, and ones you need to keep your eye out on for Louisville. Or if you're looking to play a deck to Louisville, maybe this video might help you out decide what deck you want to play and master before that tournament. But I hope you enjoyed the video here on the second channel. If you did, leave a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe down below. Help me on the road to reaching 17,000 subscribers. And yeah, maybe, you know, I'll do another one of these videos for Louisville. And I'm sure the meta will shift a little bit. Maybe more new archetypes, refined archetypes are going to pop up. So might have to do another one of these videos before we get to Louisville Regionals later next month. But for the early Stellar Crown meta, I wanted to mention the best decks right now. But hope you enjoyed the video, like I said, and I'll catch you on another one very soon. Bye-bye.